Hey, welcome to the broadcast. Welcome
What's going
to
on, guys?
Current. So excited, man. Episode 3, Judson. How stoked are you, man? We made it.
I'm pretty stoked. We've been working hard to get this thing going, keep it rolling, and I think hopefully we're getting better at it, and we're enjoying ourselves more. I know before the first show we were pretty stressed out, but Billy's got this setup dialed.
Yeah, man. Trying to get it dialed in as much as we can each week. Got a little different camera angle, so we're like trying to make sure we're looking at cameras and things like that. And dude, so episode 3, I think statistically, as far as shows and podcasts, if we can get to episode 7 or get past episode 7, that's like the curve point where people are, like, oh, these guys are real or whatever. So we're totally excited about that. So welcome to the show, guys. My name is Billy Thorpe. This is Judson Brock. We're your host of Eastern Current. So excited that you're joining us tonight. Man, we had just a great lineup. I am so excited about our guests. It's the founders of Strike Fishing. Just phenomenal products, phenomenal guys. Spent, just the last 15, 20 minutes chatting with them. Judson, you've known them for a while, so we'll get those guys on in just a little bit. But just to do a couple of things while people are jumping on, so we got about 15 or so people on, just do us a quick favor and share this. Just hit the share button, send it to your fishing buddies or your fishing pages or wherever you're at.
Add it to your Facebook, share it on Instagram.
Instagram, wherever. Let people know we're live. They can watch us live here. I got the little comments thing fixed as well, so you guys can comment on there. So yeah, man, just let us know. Share the broadcast. That'd be awesome. And go to our website, etcurrent.com. Buy a hat, buy a shirt, help us out. So cool, man. What else do we need these guys to do?
Yeah, pretty. Sorry, I was having a little tech difficulty there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we're excited to have y'all on. We were at the fishing report.
Yeah, man. Well, and just oh, hey, by the way, comment where you guys are watching us from. So, comment if you're watching us from what city, state. Cliff, I'll read some of these comments as I go. Cliff Neal says, "Hey, looking forward to this." Good evening. What's up, Ryan Miller, Don Myers, John, Cliff, Cameron, Lee? Thank you guys for commenting. And what do they get? What do they get a chance to do if they comment on the show tonight, Jeff?
So if you comment on the show tonight, we've got a pretty awesome giveaway package from iStrike. It's a $60 value, but I think Billy's got a little screenshot or a little picture of the.
Oh yeah, so we do have the iStrike. So if you guys are commenting, let me pull it up right here. Boom, right there. Look at that iStrike package. This is over $60 worth of value. Man, all kinds of stuff there.
What's on our side? I don't know, Dave.
We got trout eyes. We got the redfish eyes. We've got the jail bait, which is a new jig from iStrike that is for sheep's head fishing.
Yeah, I saw the video on that thing. It's pretty sick.
It's awesome. It looks like we've also got the Texas eyes in there. So a great little package.
Because we didn't touch anything.
Stickers on your truck, on your boat. Nice little hat. But yeah, so if you comment and you share, you've got a chance to win that tonight, and it's real cool. We love the guys over at iStrike. They did a giveaway on our first episode, and I think it was Austin Parker won that, and he sent us in a picture this week of quite a mess of trout and redfish he caught on the iStrike jigs, which was pretty cool.
Pretty amazing. I wish I'd have got that picture in time to put it on. So that was pretty amazing that he just got those in. So yeah, guys, awesome. Well, I want to do a couple of sponsor shout-outs real quick. We do want to get right into the show. Actually, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on in the water around this area, North Carolina, that area?
Yeah, certainly. So things are seeming to get a little bit better inshore. We've had the rain that we've been needing. I've been seeing so many more mullet and menhaden inshore. And with that, it seems that the redfish bite and the flounder and even still the trout fishing has been pretty good. Got on some nice redfish this week myself and in a few different areas. And the flounder fishing, it's not my strong point, but it's definitely, I've been doing better this year and better in the last little bit with that rain. So nearshore, we've still got the Spanish mackerel out there. There's guys that are having good days, and I think they've been a little tougher than they typically are this time of year, but I think this rain should help that out as well. Lots of kingfish still near shore and mahi, blackfin tuna, still a handful of sailfish out there and some nice marlin being caught. So inshore out to near shore has been pretty good, and a lot of fish around right now. So the inshore bite, though, I know we were saying it was a little slow the past couple weeks, but it's definitely turning on with this little bit of rain and the bait showing up. So that's definitely a bonus.
Awesome, man. Well, dude, that sounds awesome. I got a ton of people. I'll just share some of these. We got a lot of people here in Wilmington coming on. Murrells Inlet, Myrtle, Vegas. We all know where that's at. Texas. We got some people in Texas tuning in. New Bern, Wake Forest, Charleston. Man, Charleston, awesome. Got people from everywhere. Somebody says I'm at a conference at ECU trying to get back home to do some fishing.
Nice.
Burgaw, just right up the road from us. Yeah, a lot of people from Charleston tuning in. I guess as I strike, man, they bring in those Charleston.
They've got their loyal followers.
Sure. Awesome. Well, man, super excited about the show. Once again, I'm going to hit some sponsors really quick. I keep looking at this camera. I'm going to look at this one. I'm going to hit some sponsors super quick. I'm going to share our Sea-Tow tip of the week with you as well. So just to, first of all, just start out with iStrike. Once again, on the show, the founders are with us. We're going to bring them on. They're Skyped in. Maybe even heard them chatting a little. I'm still learning the software, so I don't think I had them muted. But working through all the tech stuff. So iStrike, super, man, just from day one, episode 1, they said, hey, we want to help you guys and give some stuff away and help promote you. We're going to be giving away AFCO and Marshwear hat tonight.
Yeah, Marshwear hat.
So we got a catch of the week, which we're going to hit here in just a few minutes. Eastern Angling, which Judson Brock sitting here to my right in front of me, but also to the left or right of me, however your screen is showing there. Thorpe Creative, that's our business, so we print apparel, we do screen printing, all that. And Judson, really go follow him. You've been making some really cool YouTube videos. I know you and Chandler were out earlier today shooting some stuff. So what is it? Judd Brock Fishing, is that
Judd
right?
Brock Fishing is the YouTube channel. Yep.
Yeah, so go to YouTube, follow him, local guy, local captain here in Wilmington. I think Chandler was telling me you guys caught somewhere around 15 redfish or something.
Yeah,
like that
we did
today.
pretty good. I think we caught around 15.
He said that you guys caught so many he was getting bored. I've never caught that many fish.
Chandler's just hard to entertain, man.
All right.
No, it was fun. We were catching some fish.
Cool. And then let's go ahead and get Sea-Tow, man. I love Scott and Sea-Tow.
I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to see this one. So here's the Sea-Tow safety tip of the week. Let me bring up the slide here. Approach a dock as hard as you want to hit a dock. So that's the Sea-Tow safety tip of the week. Approach a dock as hard as you want to hit a dock.
That's
Once again, I'm typically in a kayak, so it doesn't matter to me. I'll
as
bump
fast
all
as you
day.
can go.
As fast as I can go and slide in there, yeah. So, guys, check out Wrightsville Beach Sea-Tow if you need those guys to come tow you out and do whatever. Scott is just a phenomenal guy, phenomenal company over there. So go check those guys out. Well, man, let's get right into the catch of the week. Justin, why don't you tell us who won the catch of the week? I'll bring it up on the screen as well.
So the catch of the week winner is Zach Kirby with a nice sheep's head he caught out of his kayak fishing. Where was he fishing?
He was fishing in Carolina Beach.
Carolina Beach area. So, he's a kayak fisherman around here and caught that nice sheep's head out of his kayak this week. So
yeah, a little insider information. Zach is a pretty good buddy of mine, and we always talk fishing. So actually, I'll bring it back up. That kayak he's in is a Hobie Compass, and his girlfriend bought it for him. I'm like, man, that's a pretty good gift from your girlfriend.
yeah, it is.
And I don't know if she's watching. Hopefully Zach's watching and will watch this. Does this mean you had to buy her a ring? That's my question. He's going to ask. She bought you a $4,000+ or whatever. How much of the Compass
$15,000.
$15,000 kayak. So anyways, that's the catch of the week. Congrats, Zach. I will get that out to you. We'll get some, what is a Marshwear hat? I don't know where I put it at. But anyway, we got that. We'll give it to you. So awesome. Great job on that. Well, anyways, man, let's go ahead and get into the interview segment. I'm going to just make sure I unmute these gentlemen on all of our mics here, and we can just bring them on. I'll bring them on like a multicam. So, Judson, let's go ahead and introduce them, will you?
So, we're excited to introduce to y'all Dave and Ralph from Strike Fishing. They're down in South Carolina around the Charleston area. I had the pleasure of meeting them. We kind of I connected with Dave over email for a while. Loved his and Ralph's jig heads, and I was like, I got to figure out how I can get on board with these guys, and they've just become great friends ever since. They came down and fished with me in Louisiana. We had a great time. We had some bad weather, but we worked hard, and we ended up catching some fish. But yeah, just absolutely great guys. Love sharing their knowledge. They love helping teach beginner fishermen or fit people that want to learn anything that they know, and so that's one of the huge pluses about them. I feel like in this industry, a lot of times it's like hush hush. You got to keep things quiet, which there's a place and a time for that. But the more people we have that love this sport and that are getting out on the water enjoying it, the bigger voice we have for the resource. So I always think it's so important to share the love and share share the knowledge with everyone that you can. So Dave and Ralph, if y'all want to say hey and welcome to the show. I think we got you up on the screen now.
Oh yeah, I brought you up early just because I didn't know what else to do, so I brought you up.
If I keep pointing down here like this, I have a monitor down here, and so we got you on the screen. I'm just looking at the monitor so I can see what's going on.
Yeah, great. Thank you. That's some mighty nice things to say about us. We don't get all those nice things. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, absolutely. Well, thanks for being here. And just a guy, I read your guys' story on your website. And by the way, guys, go to iStrikeFishing.com for all their product, apparel, all those things. We're going to talk a little bit about some of those products. But I just want to tell you up front in the show, because some of you might dip out early or whatever, but iStrikeFishing.com, and you can go in there and check it out. And be sure to read the bio, man. These guys they're just not overnight guys. Ralph has been in the industry and really fishing for over 40 years. And this is what it said, Ralph, on the website. You've been fishing for over 40 years. You guided offshore. You won a bunch of tournaments. You've been in a bunch of magazines. And really your experience is just unmatched, especially to anyone on this podcast, for sure.
Most certainly.
Appreciate you coming on. That means a lot that you guys would set some time. And I don't want to leave out Dave, because he's the engineer guy, the product development guy, and just it sounds like, and you guys can tell us a little bit more, but it sounds like you worked together, you collaborate, you're a little bit different in partnership, but it's a good fit for you. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
We do appreciate the opportunity, and you nailed it. We're a lot of difference between us, and people ask me that question all the time. How in the world did you and Dave get hooked up? And I said, well, Dave's the smartest man I ever met, and I'm the luckiest fisherman I know.
That's a good way to come together there.
Dave, do you agree with that statement?
I just wanted to say, you started out talking about Judd, and I just want to mention about Judd. Judd is one of our very few, what we call our team iStrike. He got a hold of me, and we started out in this industry without a clue. We didn't really know how it worked, and people want to be on a pro staff, and I didn't even know what a pro staff was when we got started. And we don't have a pro staff because we already discount our products 40% depending on how many jigs you buy, so we can't afford to have a pro staff. But instead, we decided to take a select handful of people that we consider people who are maybe not high profile already. Judson's probably started out as one of the more high profile people that we have, but people that just already love our products and are just great ambassadors for our products. But number one, we want to have people that are just good people that we like a lot, and we want to represent our products. And Judd's one of them. So we're happy to support you guys, because, hey, Judd's one of our guys. I mean, we love Judd. He's, we want to fish with him in Louisiana. Great guy. So I just wanted to say that connection there with Judd is, it's a strong one. So.
Well, thanks so much. That means a ton. And I felt the same way when I talked to y'all on the phone. I was like, this is a company, and they're in this industry, but it feels more like a family kind of bond as far as how things go, and just keeping up with a couple other guys on social media and talking and just kind of supporting each other as we try to do something in this industry or whatever it may be. So it's definitely a really cool team / family to be a part of, and one I'm very thankful to be a part of.
Man, that's awesome. You guys just had such a connection there. I didn't want to
mess bonding
it
moment.
Up. I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna let these guys hash it out. Hopefully, I can be a part of the family now that you guys are part of the East Coast, the East Coast family, the Eastern Current family. So I'm about to shed a tear over here for real.
Hey, we'll have one more scotch and sing "Kumbaya."
Yeah. Sing Kumbaya. So I'm gonna go through. Oh well, I thought we had some questions on our comments and reactions. Luke Donay said that your guys' camera is better than his. He was our first guest actually on the show. So, man, that's excellent. Thank you guys for once again being on and sharing. And I want to get into. I have this question I want to ask. Well, actually, I'm going to let Judson start out with some questions. He has some questions he wants to ask, and then I have a really important one I've been waiting. Actually, two really important ones I'll wait on and let you guys answer them. So, Justin, go ahead and fire away, man.
So one of them was, how did y'all meet? We've already kind of been over that. The smartest guy and the luckiest fisherman are obviously going to come together. But how did y'all? I want to hear kind of both y'all's backstories. I think everybody else does. Is how did y'all get into fishing? Where did it all start? How did you really decide? Hey, I love this enough to try to get into this industry.
I'm still trying to figure that out. No, picture Dave. Dave is got into fishing by going with a friend and got the bug just like so many people do, especially saltwater. You know, go out with a friend and have a good day, and next thing you know, you bought a boat and you got a new passion in life. That was me. And you know, had a lot of trips getting skunked and started to slowly learn, figure out, you know, I focused on one creek and tried to figure out that creek really, really well. And that's what I did for a couple of years. And I kind of got stuck in a plateau and kind of a rut. And I was like, how do I get out of this rut? And I didn't know how I was going to do it, honestly. And around that time, you know, I wanted to join a fishing club, but where I lived in Somerville, there wasn't a fishing club any closer than 45 minutes away. And I just wasn't gonna drive that far. And then I heard through the grapevine that someone named Ralph Phillips, I actually knew Ralph because I went to a seminar that he gave and found out Ralph was trying to organize a fishing club in Somerville and was having an interest meeting. And I was all about it. So I went there, and there was maybe 80 people there. It was a very big
crowd, yeah.
turnout. And he had kind of a hand-picked group of industry, like people very prominent in the industry in Charleston, sort of hand-picked to be on the initial board. And they needed someone to do like the technical stuff. And there Dave was, didn't know any of them, raised his hand, you know, I know some technical stuff. And I think Ralph kind of raised an eyebrow and said, okay, I don't know who you are, but
let's go
join
fishing.
the board. So I joined the board, and that's how we met.
That's awesome.
And I, you know, even then, it was probably a couple months where we still didn't know each other that well. We went to a few, you know, meetings to organize things, and he invited me to go fishing one day, and I just tried to do all the things that you want the best fishing partner to do, which is show up on time, pack light, don't do anything stupid, you know.
Bring lots of snacks and drinks.
You know, stay out of the way. And then I tried to do something nice for him. I was trying, you know, after the trip, I was trying to think, what can I do for Ralph Phelps? He doesn't need fishing gear. He doesn't probably need anything. So I thought, well, the best way to thank him probably be to buy donuts for his employees at his company. So that's what I did, and I probably made a good impression with him.
Absolutely.
And we just kind of hit it off, and it sort of grew from there. We became good friends, started fishing more, and you know, like any kind of fishing buddy, you don't want it to be a chore when you go fishing. And I think, you know, when you have someone you know is going to be a good partner, a good company, you know, show up on time, you tend to invite them out again. So we started fishing more and more, and next thing you knew, we started this business, and here we are today talking to you guys.
Man, that's awesome.
That's super cool. How about you, Ralph? What was your entry into the fishing world?
Well, let me tell you what. I started as a young. I was raised on a farm up in Overy County, right around the Myrtle Beach area, a little ways from there. And my grandfather would take me fishing in the rivers and the creeks, and I'd follow him around wading, you know, catching bluegill, catching brim as they were called, and catching redbreast and catfish and things like that. And I remember one day I caught my first trout. Now that's what they call freshwater largemouth bass. Used to in the old days, they weren't bass, they were trout. They were freshwater trout. And that's what and first one I ever caught was just, I thought I'd really done something. And that got the bug for me. And like I told you earlier, we were talking, that's really where I looked at watching the little minnows in the creek and watching them swim. They were clear, you could see through them, and all I could see was a black dot. And I just paid attention to that. And the fish would come up and they would eat those minnows, the brim, the bluegill, the redbreast, eat the minnows. And that stuck with me for years till we got a chance to make the trout eye and the big eye jig and that sort of thing. And we could talk about that more. And then I got real lucky. I finished high school in Darlington and fished all up in Black Creek and redbreast fishing, all the
That
freshwater.
was probably lucky in itself.
Yeah. Well, I think I told
High
Dave.
school in Darlington?
Yeah, I told Dave. That was. Hey, thank you. I told Dave the best 3 years of my life was the 11th grade because I spent too much time fishing. But we did learn from it, and after that I came back after a little stint in the service and just started fishing for bass and just really got the bass bug and fished a lot of tournaments and successful with it. But studying the old patterns that I learned, which is structure. And then I got bit by the saltwater bug. I was fishing up in the Cooper River for largemouth actually, and I caught a flounder, and then I caught a spot tail, and then I caught a trout. And I said about that time, I said, to hell with these sweetwater fish. I'm gonna see what these saltwater fish are like. And that's how I started fishing closer to the harbor with worms, Texas rig worms, like the Texas I will talk about, Texas rig worms, catching flounder and trout and redfish on basically in a bass boat with freshwater tackle. And I got bit by the marlin bug probably the next 10 years, and I was lucky enough to do well in some tournaments and fished all of them down the East Coast. Been very fortunate to have friends that had money that could take us to these places, and I was lucky enough to catch fish, so they took me along for that. So Costa Rica, we fished a lot down in San Jose. Went to San Jose and fished the Pacific side, and we were fortunate enough to get up. We fished some in Alaska. We fished in Seattle for salmon. And it's been a great learning experience to watch all this. But if I had to sum up one thing, what everything had in common, whether it was catching salmon, whether it was chasing marlin, looking for depth changes and current changes, it was all about the structure and the flow. And that's the one thing that has made me at least know where to go to try to catch a fish and to look, is to study what I've learned from all these different species. It all boils back to the same thing as structure, flow, current, cover, sunlight, light, dark. So you put all that into about, let's see, it's close to 60 years now, but probably 40, 50 years fishing right here in Charleston. It never fails, and that's how I got here. Got lucky, won some tournaments, made a lot of good friends, made a couple of enemies. Of course, they're not with us. They're not with us anymore. So we'll move on from there.
Awesome. Well, I do have a follow-up question for you. I mean, you shared just a lot of good information, and hopefully we can dive into the flow, to the structure. But when you're in 11th grade, I looked at some pictures. I watched several videos just preparing for this interview. In 11th grade, were you smoking those cigars on every trip? Was that is that a part of your tackle box? Those cigars?
It absolutely is. I have a breakfast cigar. I started smoking cigars. I never smoked cigarettes. Never smoked anything. Started smoking cigars when I was 19 years old. And the way I did it, I was in the Navy, and I got lucky enough. My draft number was 3, so I joined the reserve so I wouldn't have to go to Vietnam. Guess what? I called my mom and I said, "What's Plan B? Plan A ain't working. I'm going to Vietnam." Guy gave me one to keep me awake on the mid-watch. The mid-watch was 12 to 4, and he said, "If you'll smoke the cigar," he said, "you won't go to sleep and get in trouble, and you'll keep us safe." So I said, "Okay." So I tried. I'd puffed on a cigar before, tried a little bit occasionally. So I smoked it. And this was the real deal. This was my wife won't let me smoke it in the house, but anyway, it's right here, so stand by. But I smoked that, and I promise you I didn't go to sleep that night, or probably half day the next day. But it's not a good habit, but I do love them, and it helps to fishing.
It's like his security blanket. He's got an unlit cigar in his hand right now.
That's my blankie.
That's the blankie. All right, gotcha. So, and I'll ask you one more cigar question, and I'll let Judson jump back in here. But if it's down to the fish or the cigar, which one are you letting go of?
If you're about to land that fish.
If you're about to land a fish, because I saw you have a reel in one hand, a cigar in the other. I was confused how that works anyway. But
ZMan video.
You hadn't seen the Z-Man video. I had to throw the cigar down because I tried to enjoy it, and I got it lit up a little too close, and it caught my hand on fire. I had to get rid of it.
Oh man, perfect. Well, I had to ask those couple questions because I always love stories like that of how do people, they always have something in their hand when they fish or something that makes them comfortable. So absolutely. Well,
don't take up that habit. Leave that habit alone.
I don't smoke cigars, and probably the reason is my father died when I was like 3 years old, and he's a heavy cigar smoker, and there's reason to believe that might have been part of it. So I don't smoke it, but I have a condition where I will smoke a cigar. And Ralph, what is it?
27-inch trout.
A 27-inch trout.
I catch a 27-inch trout, a wild, so you can't, a saltwater pond doesn't count. I've caught one that big in a saltwater pond, but I catch a wild 27-inch trout here in Charleston, then I'm smoking that cigar.
Call me up. I'm going to smoke one too.
It hasn't happened yet. It's been 25. Caught 25. So.
What's your biggest trout, Ralph?
Here locally, or probably 29 to 30, not local in Florida, but here locally, the biggest one I caught here was 29 inches and it weighed 7 pounds, and I caught 2 back to back, a 7 and a 7-1, 29 inches, awesome. right here in Charleston. Yes, sir.
That's awesome.
Why don't you ask me what I caught it on?
What did you catch him on?
I saw. It's a crazy story. I saw shrimp skipping, and what I had on a bait casting reel was a Pop R. That's a bass lure. That's made by Rebel, called a Pop R. It's a chug plug, and I saw the shrimp and I picked it up and ripped it out, and they just, I thought it was a redfish, but they just they really piled up on it. I was ripping through the water and they just came up and got it.
God, that's awesome. Not only was he a monster trout, but a monster trout on topwater. That is cool. So that kind of leads me into this next question I wanted to ask. So what, together, both of y'all on the boat, what is the most epic fishing adventure that y'all have had? Fishing tale, whatever it may be, that y'all have had together, shared together on the water, locally or outside of South Carolina?
Well, yeah, we've fished together a lot, so we've got a few. We call each other Tom and Huck, so we call them Tom and Huck Adventures. And there's been a few times we've been on the boat and looked at each other like, what the hell are we doing?
What are we doing here?
And one of them was, we were talking about this morning. We were, it was probably January, February?
Cold.
Dead of winter. One out of Bushy Park up here, Brackish Water launch. And it was cold, probably 40-something degrees, pouring rain. And, we're looking through this much opening. You can only see your eyes. We're covered head to toe, freezing. I didn't have proper boots, so my shoes were full of water. And we're driving through the blasting rain and looking at each other like, what are we, stupid? And we pulled up to the first spot, and we were like, well, let's just make a few casts, and, maybe we'll head back to the landing. And first or second cast, we caught a nice redfish. And we were like, maybe they're biting. So we ended up at a spot that we don't really tell anyone about. It's kind of like there's a few generous people that are.
Well, now's the time. This is a perfect show.
Perfect
share.
time to share beans.
Yeah, a few people that know this particular spot, and we pulled up there, and I tell you what, we yo-yoed redfish. I'm talking doubles after doubles after doubles. We were laughing like little middle school kids in the pouring rain, freezing cold, and just having a time of our lives. And that was one that I won't probably ever forget.
A lot of doubles.
You think of another one?
Yeah, we had Dave when we first got started. I was down in, my wife had a business trip down in Florida, and I went down and we were fishing. Was at Mosquito Lagoon, and we'd hired a guide, and I go down there and the guy, he was a great guy. He was recommended by somebody local here that knows him, and so hired him and went down, and he shows up with his boat with no trolling motor on it, and he's got live shrimp, he's got pigfish, he's got mullet, he's got every known species of live bait. I show up with a bait casting reel and one spinning reel and a handful of artificials, and I told him, I said, all you have to do is take me to a spot that you think I can catch a big trout. I don't care anything about little trout. Take me to the spot. Well, he did, and we had a great time, and I fished artificials, and he fished the pigfish. I invited Dave down. I said, Dave, you got to come down here and try this. So he drove down to Florida, and we had the same guide and went out and with this man. And we're 99% artificial fishermen. We had the time of our life in Mosquito Lagoon. In the middle of the day with the bright sun, we caught redfish on top water, and he said that don't work down here. And we didn't know that it didn't work, so we threw it and caught redfish, and we didn't know it didn't work. And then we took in fishing the sand holes, and we absolutely caught some really gator trout. And we never used the live bait. We were fishing the artificials and throwing the bait up on the grass and drag it back. And I think the guide was impressed that we stuck to our principles and stayed with the artificials and with our jig heads, and just had a heck of a time. And he still talks about the trip.
That's awesome. I fished the Mosquito Lagoon just a little bit. I was down in the Keys actually one time, and we were down there to tarpon fish, and it was blowing so bad. And we're like, all right, let's look at the forecast all the way up the coast and just start driving until we get to good weather. And so we stopped in Mosquito Lagoon and fished. And there are some big trout in there. I've only gotten to fish it that one time, but that's a cool fishery, the Mosquito Lagoon area. And I definitely want to get back down there. I might have to get that guy's number from you because I want to go catch some trout down there in Mosquito Lagoon.
Man, I got a couple Facebook questions. I'll just kind of get our multicam here to ask you guys. And so we'll kind of move into talking more about, you said you fish 99% artificial bait. So a question from John on our Facebook, Fatrelli. I hope I didn't massacre your last name there, John. He says, I've heard people say they use a lot of the same tackle to catch both flounder and red drum inshore. He says he's caught a billion flounder. John, I'm going to call you out on that, man. I'm not sure. A billion flounder, but he's never caught a red drum. He says, what am I missing? Do I need a boat that drafts in 2 inches? Like, what's the trick? So you guys talked a little bit about artificial. So maybe let's dive into that. Before the show, you're kind of telling us, hey, here's how you find fish. Here's how you, and this it sounds like John's question is like, do I need a skinny boat, or I can go in skinny water to find these fish? Like, what's the trick? I can catch flounder, but I can't catch red drum or redfish. And then, like, on your guys' products and the things that you use, are you finding that you have success and other people have success catching all types of inshore species? That was a little bit loaded question, but
that was a long question. What you got?
We fish basically the same tackle for redfish, trout, and flounder. It's the structure, and we look for if we're targeting flounder, if we're looking for targeting to flounder, we like to find a flow, outgoing tide, inlets where they can sit there and they can ambush bait. If I go out, it's just strictly I want to go catch a flounder. I'm gonna look for ditches and little creeks that drop out, and I'm gonna fish that. I'm gonna fish it very, very slow. Keep that bait on the bottom, keep it moving. The ZMan product, which we partners with and we fish a lot, the tail floats up on it, and we take it like a light head, like an 1/8 ounce or nothing heavier than a 3/16, and let the head go down, and we bump that out very, very slowly. That's the way I would and David, I think, would target flounder. If we would go out and say we're going to try to catch a flounder, is look for the inlets, look for the shelves at low tide. There's still water on the shelf. Now, by shelf, I mean like you got from the grass, you got 10 feet out, and then it drops into the channel. Those flounder are going to lay up there on that shallow shelf that we call it, and you move that bait across there slowly. And if you think you're hung up and you think you're snagged up, just wait a second. It may be a flounder. They just grab it and hold it. But that's the way we would go about it. And I don't change anything.
I mean, but the question was the guy caught a billion flounder.
Oh.
He's looking for what? Redfish.
Oh, he wants to catch redfish?
Yeah.
Well, first he needs to tell the truth. I mean, a billion flounder. My God, I'm ready to get
Usually it's the opposite.
Yeah,
redfish are easier.
Yeah,
flounder are harder.
That reminds me of what George Bush said one time. He went to talk to the Secretary of Defense, and he said, "My God, they've sent 3 Brazilian soldiers into Afghanistan." Anyway, he didn't know what a Brazilian was, but a billion is the target redfish we do. That's pretty good, wasn't it?
That is
good. Me and Billy are rolling over here.
So Ralph, have you caught you've been fishing for a long time. Have you caught a billion flounder? That's a good question.
No, sir. I have. But let me tell you, I've told fish stories that bad, but I've not caught that many. If you target redfishing, is move off just if the tide's out. If you're fishing the same pattern, we find that they'll move off a little bit. In the redfish, the way we fish here, they'll drop down in the channel a little bit. They when the tide comes up, they'll come up with the tide, but when they come back down with the tide coming out, they have a tendency to drop off on the ledges. So if you got a spot where you're catching flounder, look where that creek channel, where it drops down, and that's the way we pattern them. And one thing that Dave's working really hard on now is side scan with the depth finders, learning a whole lot about that. And that shows when you go by and you see a channel where there's a drop down, you can mark the fish with it. And that's, if I could tell you one thing, is get out of the shallow water, move back where it drops into the channel, and you got a little defined drop there.
Yeah, I would say to add to that, it kind of depends on how salty the water is too. If you're in pretty salty water, you're gonna find them around shells. So look for oyster rakes. They're gonna congregate around oyster rakes. Also docks. If you are in a creek and look for the dock that extends into the deepest water, and then fish those pilings. Doesn't hurt if you want to just find out where the pattern is. I mean, redfish are dumb. Let's be honest. They're not smart fish. If you pitch a piece of cut mullet under a dock and wait no more than 5 minutes, if you do not get bit, pick it up and go to the next dock. Keep doing that until you find the fish. When you find them, take note of the tide stage. They will be in that same pattern the entire summer during the warm water. It's not hard to do. So one thing to look for, something we do here a lot, if you look for Google Maps where you have a big flat that empties out into a little feeder creek, and that happens to be right up current of a dock that's on an outgoing tide, so that current's coming out of the flat, it's emptying the flat, and it's spilling into that dock. Target that dock, because that's going to hold redfish. It's guaranteed. On the flip side, if you're fishing brackish water, which is what we do a lot, I love brackish water. It's our favorite thing. You're basically bass fishing. If you think about bass are going to hang on fallen trees. They're going to hang on any kind of structure that's not shells. It's like drop-offs, rocks, rocky points, submerged brush, or anything that's like that. You'll find redfish there the same as you'll find largemouth bass. In fact, quite often we'll catch a largemouth bass on one cast and a redfish on another cast. So try that. You'll catch more redfish.
It goes right back to what we said: structure, structure, structure. No matter what the fish, redfish, they absolutely love it. If you got a line of docks, if you got docks, you got 10 in a row. Dave can tell you, we first started fishing together, I'd hit the first 2 docks on each end and move on from there.
Yep.
So would you say the docks are more important than bait, than jig heads, than lures? Because I know you're talking about the eye, and from the story that I read, you fish a lot of offshore, Ralph, and the thing about it was they always strike the eye. And so I had a question from a friend of mine. He said, make sure you ask him this question, and it was, do artificial baits catch more fish or catch more fishermen? Which I thought was a pretty interesting question, because you guys have, first of all, just a phenomenal looking product. We obviously know it, like from our guy who sent us a picture in. They won the catch of the week, I think, a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So would you, and then somebody else, and I'm kind of asking loaded questions because I'm trying to get to our questions, but get to Facebook as well. And someone asked if you guys could elaborate on the color selection, depending on the water, clarity, time of day, things like that. So kind of a loaded question, but can maybe even answer their question, colors for dark water, light water, things like that. Can you elaborate a little bit more? And you can talk about ZMan products. You guys can, obviously share your relationship with ZMan. I know we talked about that pre-show a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm. So, one of my good friends was Bob Sanders. He was the guy who sort of discovered the Trout Trick. A lot of people know the Trout Trick. It's now a ZMan product. Used to be a gambler lure that Bob Sanders had come up with. And he was, along with Ralph, he's one of my mentors. And he always had the opinion that artificials, you catch more fish on artificials than live bait. And people would usually raise their eyebrow and say, come on, BS. And his rationale, and I really believe this, is that it's true because you can cover a lot more area with an artificial bait than you can with a live offering. So if you have like a shrimp under a cork, that cork's going to float with the current. It's going to cover a little line, along the creek. But if there's a fish 6 feet away, he may not see it because of, dirty water or whatever. But the way we fish is we'll drift with the current. We don't ever really stay in one place. We'll just keep going. We're basically bass fishing. We're bass fishing for saltwater fish. You're drifting with the current, and you're fan casting the entire bank. So you're covering, square feet of you're basically covering the entire bottom.
And
using an artificial base.
You're coloring the columns and the
top to bottom, and then area. And you got me and Ralph in the boat. We're going to canvas an area in 10 minutes. And if the fish are there, we know that the way we're presenting it, it's probably going to get bit. If those fish are there, they're going to probably bite it. They may, if nothing else, they might hit it and they might miss it, but at least we'll know they're there. And if they're not, we're going to move. So we can cover tons of water with artificial baits. And I think my experience started having fairly new to this. And when I started out, I was on the boat with Ralph, and he kept looking over at me, and I was using the wrong technique. I was leaving a lot of slack in my line. He'd look over and say, "You just missed a bite." I'm like, "What?" "No." He's like, "Yep, just missed a bite." And then keep going. "Okay, you missed another one." "What?" Well, it's all about managing your line. It's all about technique. We could talk about that. It's a whole different subject, but when you figure out how to do it right, you are not going to miss a bite. I could tell you, I guarantee you, if I get a bite, I don't care how light it is, I'm going to know that at least I know I'll get bit, and I may miss it, but I know it's there. And a lot of people, when they fish artificial baits, they don't manage their line, and they'll get bit, and they never even knew they had a bite. And for that reason, I would say artificial bait's more efficient. You'll catch more fish with artificial bait once you learn how to do it.
And another benefit to it is in the wintertime, because we fish 12 months out of the year. We try to fish 100 days a year. Wintertime bait's a little hard to find. Well, you can find the ZMan or other products. You can go to tackle shop and buy it. Mm-hmm. You don't have to go out and catch bait or worry about you got frozen bait and this sort of thing. But to me, the real excitement is I have tricked that fish. And I tell this all the time, and you guys may have already heard it. I tell people, if you only want to fish, if you only want to feed the fish, if you only want to take bait and throw it in the water, you can save yourself a lot of money. Don't buy a boat, don't buy a Jeep, don't buy a car. Buy you an aquarium, stay home, throw food in there, and feed them. And and I get some laughs, and I get some fingers. I get several different things. It's just the way I feel. If you want to enjoy the fishing, get out there and have the confidence. It catches a lot of fishermen because a lot of fish are caught on those baits. If it's in your mind, it goes down your line. I say that all the time.
All right.
Think positive and throw that bait out there and keep the line tight so you can feel the bite. You catch 2 or 3 fish on artificial, you'll quit wasting your money on bait.
I like it. No, I'm with you on that. And I remember when we fished together, you were talking about feeling the bites too. Y'all really like fishing those Tennessee handle rods, don't you? Awesome. And so that explain kind of what that is and how that helps you out when you're, especially trout fishing, I feel like is where it's a pretty big benefit.
Well, I tell you what, it goes back with me primarily on the Tennessee handle. I was a young man. I was fishing up in Tennessee, and we were dropping down 30, 40 feet of water. I had a friend of mine up there was a guide, and we were catching smallmouth. And I'm talking about he beat me like a red-headed stepchild. He just wore me out. I couldn't feel the bite. He said, "You can't feel it with that handle. It's such a subtle bite." So he convinced it. And what a Tennessee handle is a rod blank. It's a cork handle, and we use tape, and we literally tape that reel to the handle. I think Shimano one time talked about made a few. I don't know how it worked out for them, but anyway, that's the most sensitive rod and combination. You have no metal in it. You can feel no deflection. I think Dave is a convert here. And when the wind's blowing, when it's cold, when it's a light bite, and you know what, a lot of folks when they're learning how to fish artificial, I'm standing in the boat and I watched the line flick, and like I did with Dave, I said, "You just missed a bite." No, I said, "Oh, you did. You missed a bite." It's like a little flick. That's all you feel. Just boop. That's all you feel. And what that is, a friend of mine, Charlie Winter, explained that and showed me. And you can go to the wildlife department here on James Island and see it when they feeding trout. I got a little bait here. We'll hold it up. And when that trout, particularly a trout, when he goes up, he doesn't bite that bait. He sucks it in. He pulls water in, and he flushes it through his gills. And what you feel is this bait hitting the back of his mouth, the back of his throat, like that. And if you don't hook that fish, I'm talking about really pretty quick, the next thing you feel, he blows it out because it's not natural. So the thump you feel on the bite is hitting the back of his throat. And we watched that and witnessed that with live trout, 8-9 pounders in the aquarium there, and they would feed them. And they would throw bait in, and the fish would suck it in and eat it. They would throw a piece of plastic in, they would take it in, you'd feel the bump, and they'd blow it right back out. So you really got to keep a tight line. If the wind's blowing, keep your rod tip down, stay in contact with your lure. Most of your bites are going to come on the drop. When the bait's bouncing up and it's coming on the fall, you're going to get most of your bites. So you got to have a tight line so you can feel it. And when I say it's a light bite, sometimes the bigger the fish, the lighter the bite, because they just explode like that and pull the bait in.
So something I was going to add is in my learning curve to fishing artificial baits, how many times did we fish the same hole with the same rod, same jig, everything like that, and Ralph would pull out a fish bigger than mine over and over again. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And it occurred to me eventually that the reason is the bigger the fish, the lighter the bite. We're talking about trout. The bigger the trout, the lighter that bite on artificial. So, a Tennessee handle isn't for everyone, but if you really want to target the gator trout and artificial, you need to be able to feel. You need to eliminate everything that's going to keep it from feeling the slightest bite, and that's the reason. And he has 50 years experience, and I have 15. So I'll never catch up. But
well, we add that along with we do a lot of shad fishing. We have in the last couple of years, but historically we've had a good shad fishery here. And that's an extremely light bite when the shad's biting a 32nd ounce jig head, and it applies to that too. And it'll apply to any time you're fishing artificials. You got to be able to feel that bite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. One other question real quick that went in with this that just came up on Facebook was, Ralph, is it true you use straight braid for trout?
When I use straight braid for trout, when I am fishing jigs, and Dave here has beat me unconscious to tie a piece of mono when I'm doing top water, and I have gone to a leader now with top water so I don't tangle the hook. But when I'm fishing braid, I tie it straight to the hook. I don't want anything to deflect that bite.
That's awesome. That's cool.
So that's another thing I think that you get a lot of sort of I don't know if it's a myth, but you get information that's passed along from people to people, and it becomes sort of like gospel. And that is, you got to have a leader. Now, if you're in Florida or you're in a place that's got super clear swimming pool type water, then 100% you're going to need a long leader. Here in Charleston, we've got dirty water. You don't need a leader. Ralph's convinced me of that. I've watched him pull gator trout after gator trout out of the water using straight braid to the jig. It might be a little bit in how he fishes and how he's taught me how to fish, and we're going for a reaction bite. We're not presenting it really, really slow, so the fish has a chance to really examine that lure before it bites it. Our lures are going pretty quick, and I think when those fish see that lure come by, they have a split second to decide if that's a meal or if it's not. And if it's a meal, it's getting away, so they better strike it pretty quick. And the braid, the leader it's really not an issue. You don't need a leader.
And kind of jumping into rigging, I watched a video, and maybe you could share a little bit more about this, Dave or Ralph. Because that was one of the things, because I fish a lot of artificial stuff. I'm not very good at it. I'm learning a lot on this show, but kind of like you, Dave, like just saying, hey, I'm just going to fish artificial. I'm going to get better and really work at it. So the way that you were rigging, some of the soft plastics, this one was particularly a ZMan, onto your guys' jig head, also to the iStrike jig head. I mean, that obviously has a lot to do with it because, some of those soft plastics I feel like are pretty stretchy. So am I missing a bite because, maybe a flounder's pulling it out, or maybe a trout, like you said, trout suck it in, or flounder and redfish, are they, really novice question here. But, how do I rig that thing to make sure, when I pull pull that back out, it's not just like dangling off the hook. Like I've run into that so many times when fishing artificial. Kind of a basic question, but I've heard all kinds of stuff. Just curious. I saw the video that you made, so I don't know if you have something you could show us there or not.
So I mean that's something that we learned from Daniel Nussbaum, the president of ZMan. We sort of committed to fishing ZMan just because we're partners with them, and now you wouldn't convince me to fish anything else. I'm convinced that it's the best product out there. I mean, I don't care if we ended our relationship with ZMan, I'd still be fishing ZMan because it's a better product. But, you hear the complaints all the time. Well, I can't get the bait on the hook. And, our jigs have some pretty prominent prongs. That's one of the reasons that it works so well for ZMan. And we sat down, I'll never forget it, we were sitting there with Daniel, and I think we said the same thing. We're having trouble getting it on the hook. And he's like, oh, you got to pull it. Don't push it. You got to pull it. And we were like, huh? And he showed us, if you look at the video on our YouTube, I Strike Fishing, you'll see a video where I've shown how to do it. You have to hold the curve of the hook, pull the Elastec over the head, and let it snap back onto those hooks. Once you do that, it is not going to come off. And we heard it from him. Yeah. We were both just like,
well,
oh, duh.
Well, Daniel was telling us, if you got a Z-Man and you're trying to push it on the hook, it's like trying to shoot pool with a rope. You can't do it. But this is a text out here, but the concept was pull it up over, and you can see, you can take this and you pull this just like that, get it over the barb, and it snaps back, and it's there. Mm-hmm. And you do both. You just take it both sides. This is a Texas side, which we were going to talk about. But you pull it up over those barbs, and it will stretch just like this. You'll never push it all the way up on the barbs, but you can pull it and snap it back, and it's just like that.
Yeah, it's so simple, but total game changer with Z-Man.
Do y'all ever do much with using super glue to keep the Z-Mans up? No, don't need to when you do it like that. That's awesome. It's awesome. I'll have to try it like that.
With these barbs, you don't need anything to glue to it.
Awesome. So we were the next thing we were going to jump into was y'all had mentioned the partnership with Redfin Charters and
kind of speaking of partnerships, as far as like with Z-Man, I know you guys just started. And we could talk about this a little bit. We could talk about jigs a little bit, kind of wherever you guys want. Nothing. I keep looking at the wrong. Oh wait, it doesn't even matter. I'm not even on camera because I haven't learned how to work this thing yet. So, so anyway, there I am. Perfect. So we were talking. We could get back into talking about some of the different types of jig heads. But while people are still on and we're coming up on an hour here, I don't want to miss the opportunity. Judson just looked at me and said, "Hey, we can't miss the opportunity to talk about this new nonprofit that you started, that you've partnered with. Looks like Z-Man, and you've partnered with Redfin Charters as well. Can you guys just real quick tell us a little bit about that? And like I said, we can jump back into some more fishing stories and some more stuff. But I feel like that's a huge thing that you're doing, and don't want to miss that opportunity to tell people about it."
Yeah, we're really proud of that. We started something called the CPR Initiative, which is basically a fund, and it stands for Community and Professional Response Initiative. And what it is it's a way for the community to donate money to a fund that will be used to enhance our fisheries directly, without people taking a cut out of it, and not having any strings attached. And the idea is that this fund will fund projects that we do. And the first one was what we called Project Respec, which was the goal was to raise $25,000 to the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources to help their spawning, the White Elf Center, which is a center. It's a part of the DNR that does spawning for restocking fish, and they needed some new spawning tanks. Each tank can do something like, I don't know, some million minnows a year, where they take, they have brood stock, big, so we have a video. We haven't even shown it yet, but we have a video of these 20-pound trout that they have in these tanks.
Wow.
And what they do is they're there to make eggs, and they skim these eggs off, and then they end up making baby trout, and then they'll raise them to minnows, and then they'll release them around South Carolina. And so we ended up raising like half that money, and we were lucky enough to have the CCA South Carolina join us and match our funds,
donation, yeah.
So that we actually did reach our goal of $25,000.
Wow.
To fund, and it ended up we thought it was originally going to be just funding one new tank, but I think what they're going to do is more than that, refurbish 5 tanks and move the spawning site down to the Waddell Center, which is in Beaufort. Anyway, they use it for very good reasons, and we should have millions more trout stocked around our state as a result of that.
That's incredible.
Well, this is where the fishermen can kind of dictate where the money goes rather than having to go through a committee and be put in a general fund and then they get 10%. This money goes directly to DNR for this purpose, earmarked, tagged, and that's what they do with it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So Respec is your first project. So you guys looking to do several more of those as needs come up. Is that kind of the idea?
That's right. We've had some discussions, and we're hoping to do something where we send some money toward trying to rejuvenate the striper, riverine striper is what we call them. So in South Carolina, there's a huge fishery for striper in the lakes, the reservoirs that we use for hydroelectric power here in the state. Some of those striper get through the locks, and they end up in the rivers. Cooper River in particular. Mm-hmm. And, Ralph, tell them about what it used to be like.
Back in the late 60s and the 70s, striper fishing in the Cooper River, these were ocean-going stripers that came in, and it was just unbelievable. I mean, you didn't have bragging rights unless it was 20 to 25 pounds. I mean, they wouldn't turn a head unless you had a fish that size. And I've been out there with my dad, my uncles, and 15, 20 stripers is common for half a day fishing. You troll bucktails, you could cast a schooling fish. It was just it was, I'd say, on a smaller scale, comparable to Chesapeake Bay as far as the quality of the fish. We don't have near the volume, but the fishery was there. And I really, really, treasure those days and remember the trips we had. And we've had some good days now, but a striper now, a 25, 27-inch striper is considered a big fish now, where that wouldn't turn a head back in the day. And so what we're doing, Dave and I and our Daniel and the group that we're working with here, trying to find projects like that and to help. We want our kids and grandkids and everybody in South Carolina to enjoy particularly what I've had. Remember back in the day in the 60s, 70s, 80s, it was just unbelievable. I wish we had known then technology, what we know now as far as preserving the fish and trying to help it. But we're trying to get it where, and we're trying to teach everybody we can to fish so they can teach their kids and just continue the fun that we've had and just the great recreation that it creates.
Wow. That's awesome. That's really neat that you in particular you, Ralph, that you can be one of the first of 3 charter boat fishermen in South Carolina area, Charleston area, and then now you're even all these years later, giving back to what you've prospered from for so long. So good on you for doing that, and appreciate it. And hopefully this will inspire some people even in North Carolina to watch and to come up with some creative ideas to raise money and do some creative projects here. So
yeah, that's what I was wanted to kind of touch on is we have a lot of people that myself included that complains about what our fisheries become here in North Carolina, our saltwater fishing, redfish, trout, and flounder. And it's just where do I start? How do I get started? What can I do? What can I tangibly do tomorrow or this week or this month or this year to maybe get stocking efforts started here in North Carolina or, to raise awareness? And y'all are doing it down there. What are some tips that you can give some of our friends here in North Carolina as far as what can we do to maybe, raise awareness as well as maybe get some stocking programs started? So kind of that whole idea? What do we need to do to get to where y'all are?
You need to get your anglers like you get Dave and I to be aware. And one thing we did, Dave and I talked about a lot after we came back from Louisiana with you, was the number of trout. We caught just from casting in a couple of spots that we stopped in and there, but the size and to get that creel limit down. Nobody needs 100 fish. Nobody needs 25
No.
fish. Keep 5 fish. If you want something to eat, I eat fish. We love them. We keep enough to eat and we put the rest back to get the creel limits where they're reasonable. And I don't even know for sure, but I think they've stopped most of the gill netting in North Carolina now. That was a big deal for a long time. The commercial gill netting up there on stripers and trout and everything else. Is that still going on?
It is still going on. Yep, it is. So
I would say, you the grassroots effort is important. You get all the anglers on board, but industry partners is important as well. We partnered with ZMan. Redfin Charters is one of the bigger charter fishing outfits in this area, and ZMan is very high profile. CCA South Carolina. You want to talk about someone that's got some influence in Washington and everywhere. Try to make contacts with people that have, their hands on the strings in the government.
Definitely.
That's how you make a change. But you definitely want to do everything you can to change mindsets as well. We have a lot of things. Like one thing I've been telling, or I've been doing myself, and I try to encourage everyone who will listen to do the same. Is just because you have a law, or you don't have an upper slot for trout in South Carolina. We've got a lower slot of 14 inches. There's no upper slot. You catch a 23-inch trout, keep as many as up to the creel limit, but there's no upper slot. There's no limit to how big. But that doesn't mean that we as anglers can't observe our own upper slot. Why not voluntarily say my upper slot's 20 inches? If I catch one over 20, it's going back. I don't care what. It's just automatically going back. There's no reason that, if you can't talk to your friends, they talk to their friends, suddenly you've got 60% of the population that's automatically releasing all their trout over 20 inches. You effectively have an upper slot of 20 inches.
Yeah.
Why can't you do that? That's something that we talked about. We're going to try to make it a little bit more formal in the future, but why not?
Well, I was talking about it this morning. We sat down. Why the heck not? And he came up with an idea. We really gonna go forward with this. And if we can get you guys or anybody else to join with us, we'll send you a bumper sticker. What we come up with, Dave? You release.
Release over 20, so it'd be like an R greater than 20 with a trout, on a trout background, and put it on your sticker. And basically what that is it's like it says you pledge to do that. I'm on board. I'm going to voluntarily release all my trout over 20 inches, and it's kind of a way to show that you're doing it, and encourage other people to join in.
I like that. I'm in.
There's some information from like Texas recently I was reading where they instituted an upper slot for trout, and guess what? In like 3 years, the number of what we call gator trout, big trout, 25 inches and higher, the frequency of catch of those went up like 60%.
Wow.
Wow.
So, it doesn't take a whole lot. Just do it.
Yeah, man, I think that's a great idea, is getting people, like you said, like, hey, I'm going to make this commitment. Will you make this commitment with me? Because, a lot of times we lean heavy. I mean, there's a lot of, and we won't get into it. We don't want to touch too much on political stuff here, but a lot of red tape, political stuff to get, laws, especially in North Carolina right now. A lot of the fishing, regulations are getting looked at, and laws are trying to be passed. And so I think what you guys are saying is pretty mindful, because we always, lean heavy on government to fix our problems, but it's like we have control. We control our rod, we control our actions. And so, man, that's a great idea, and hopefully people watching this and our viewers watching this, and we're gonna kind of transition from the political talk here and get into answer some Facebook questions and interact with the users a little bit more. But hopefully some of the people are watching this that are really passionate, that want to go stand on the steps of the local government and yell at them, like hopefully they'll just rally together and start their small groups of people that say, hey, I'm going to make a commitment to make my area better that I'm fishing in and take care of it, man. I think that's cool what you guys are doing. That's really setting the pace. Cool. So appreciate you doing that.
When y'all get those stickers, let me know. I definitely want to get one from you.
Absolutely. Pretty soon.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Well, Justin, do you have the Facebook up over there, man? Maybe you could rip through some of those questions.
Yeah, definitely. Let me scroll back up. I had a good one. So here's kind of a local question. It's from John Johnson. What is your opinion of the fishing in the Bushy Park area, saltwater side, of course, is what it says.
Fishing right now is excellent on the saltwater side, but then we go right back to it. Sorry.
No, we're good. Sorry. I think Justin lost audio there, but you can go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay. Fishing on the Bushy Park side is real good. In fact, Dave and I will be fishing over there this weekend. The problem is getting into landing there. We have a political battle that we talked about today. Mm-hmm. The Bushy Park landing, the saltwater side, from about a half tide, you can't get in and out. It's just so silted in. But the fishing up on Bushy Park it's the time of the year from now till the fall. Redfish are moving up. There'll be some trout up there. The flounder moving up. It's the time of the year to fish that area. It really is. And just know the tide that you can get in and out that landing or go somewhere else and run up there.
Mm-hmm. Bushy Park saltwater is a special place. It's brackish water. You literally catch freshwater, saltwater species in the same 2 casts. It's so much fun to fish there. It's a little bit different than people are used to. It's a place where I got to talk to you. I got an idea for a potential tournament, but something that I try to do every year, and I've rarely accomplished it, is you can, in the fall time, you can try to catch something, what I call a margarita slam. And if you wonder, you say, what's that? Well, it's sweet and salt water, all right? Margarita. So
I like it.
It's a redfish, trout, flounder, typical slam, and then add a striper and a largemouth bass to that.
That's a day. That's a good day right there.
If you can do that in a single trip,
you've done
that. You've done something. And if you can do it using the same bait, that's like the holy grail.
Have y'all done that?
I have not done it on the same bait, but I've done it a few times. But I was thinking that maybe I hadn't even talked to Ralph about this, but it'd be fun to have like a little informal tournament, like maybe during the month of September.
Yeah.
You know, whoever can catch a margarita slam in the same day will win something from iStrike or something. It's just a fun challenge to try.
Yeah, that's really cool.
While we're on the air, let's remind folks of one thing: the Bushy Park landing. If you draw a line straight out from the Bushy Park landing to the other side of the river, that is the cross between salt and fresh water. So if you're up there fishing, you've got to have a fresh and a saltwater license, because that's where the saltwater. If you crossed past the Bushy Park landing, you're considered fresh water. And if you're coming up from Charleston or coming in, putting in somewhere else, if you're in fresh water, they expect you to have that license after you pass Bushy Park.
Okay, that's good to know.
Coming the other way.
Well, we've got a bunch of people already jumping in here and saying, I'm down for the release 20. So I think y'all are going to get some good traction with that.
Awesome.
People are commenting. It seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
Do you have any new questions? Yeah, so if y'all still have questions, just go ahead and just comment here in the comment section of the Facebook live feed, and we'll get to them. But we're going to jump back into a few of the questions.
Yeah, I'll jump into actually a couple questions we missed. Further up I think this one brings in a little difference. So Ryan Miller wants to know this question: do trout in the summertime move from the upper reaches of the creeks/rivers and closer to the intercoastal waterways, main rivers and inlets? So he's kind of asking, like, where can he find some trout in the summertime here?
That's a great question. We know Ryan. He's a great guy, a friend of ours. Thanks for tuning in, Ryan.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah. In the wintertime, trout move way up into almost the fresh water, way up the creeks. In the summertime, they tend to move out toward the coast. Not that you won't find trout everywhere and in between all year long, but in general, the numbers, I think, in the wintertime especially, they're going to move way up into brackish water. surprisingly high into the brackish water, as we've discovered in the past. And, if you're going to target, especially big trout, we have to target the big trout, you're definitely going to want to focus more on the harbor, front beaches, intercoastal waterway, in the summer. Near shore, yeah. Near shore, okay. Surf even.
And the big thing that happens to that is not just it's the water temperature. I used to have a saying that I wouldn't eat an oyster in a month that didn't have an R in it. Well, a trout is almost the same way. So when that water temperature, I think it was like 84, 85 last time we were out, that trout gets so soft till it's not worth the kill for the quality of the food. I love to eat trout. We keep enough to eat occasionally whenever we go fishing. But when it's summertime, it's real soft, and that meat is just not worth. Just release the fish. But Dave's spot on. Go back toward the harbor for trout early in the morning, late in the afternoon, and fish the Castle Pinckney area, the jetties, in the nearshore stuff, Tombstones down at McClellanville, things like that. That's where you're gonna find the bigger trout now.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So sorry, stumbled over my words there. We've got a couple people that have been jumping in and asking, let's see, when to fish a paddle tail versus a jerk shad. So are y'all switching those out, based upon water conditions and what fish you're targeting, or is it more just the action you want, or how the fish are reacting to what you're throwing? When do you want to throw a jerk shad versus a paddle tail?
I'll let you take that one.
Okay. Me personally, it depends on water clarity. If I'm fishing gin clear water, and as much as important as the paddle tail, the jerk shad, it's the size of the bait. In the early season, we fish the rat tail bait, a little short bait, and go up in size as the bait goes up. But primarily when I fish a paddle tail versus a streak, it's just water clarity. If I got dingy, dirty water, I'll tend to fish more of the paddle tail. I fish more jerk bait than I do the paddle tail, but I use it on a slow retrieve. Yeah, we go back to a question we had earlier. If I'm targeting a flounder and I'm fishing real slow, I got to get on the bottom and really cover the bottom, I use the paddle tail. But if it's fast moving water and the bait are moving, it's lively and the bite's good, the jerk shad. So I think it really depends on speed of the water, clarity of the water, and what you're targeting. You want to get someone's attention, that paddle tail will do it, but it's got to have its time. And I think the dingy water, paddle tail, clear water, use a jerk shad, and the size. Believe it or not, we were down there. You remember we caught that 44-inch redfish on a 3 3/4 inch rat tail, because elephants do eat peanuts, so we eat the smaller bait. Depending. Remember that fish we caught, Justin? We were trout fishing.
Oh yeah, I do. That we had some trout blow up beside us in Louisiana, and we'd kind of gotten bumped by some redfish, and we're sliding out, and we started catching some trout, and we're having fun. And I was like, oh man, some guys don't want to catch trout in Louisiana. I'm excited about this. And then all of a sudden, Dave hooked into a nice redfish on that tiny little rat tail bait. That was awesome. We were having a hoot and a holler about that.
So talking about baits and different types of baits, here's another question from Cameron. It says mirror lure or soft plastic. Some people swear by mirror lure, but they say they've always had more luck on soft plastics. Have you guys seen a huge difference? I mean, obviously you're much more experienced. So can you talk a little bit about the difference in soft plastics versus mirror lures?
I think he's definitely talking like subsurface mirror lures, not top water, but just like if you're fishing in the water column.
Yeah. So obviously we have a jig head company. It doesn't mean that's all we fish. We go out early in the morning and we're throwing top waters. We'll throw suspending hard baits as well. The thing that I've noticed is that, probably out of the top 5 biggest trout I've caught, probably 3 of them have come on suspending jerk baits, hard baits. You'll throw those, you won't catch as many fish, but the ones that you do catch are going to be pretty good quality fish. And, jig heads, you're going to catch numbers. Eventually, sometimes you catch big fish on them, but you're going to catch all different size fish on them. I don't know. I guess that's how I put it.
Well, and the hard baits, me personally, with the hard baits, I use it during cold weather. When the water temperature gets down below 50, The bait that's out there, what bait's left in the creek, are very, very lethargic. And the plastics I use whenever the bait's active and I can cast it and move it, I go to the hard baits, mirror lures, and what are the mirror dives we fish, something that they move slow and there's no activity, it drops down. That determines when I'm fishing plastic or if I'm fishing hard baits, is the water temperature and what the bait are doing.
Okay. Yeah, that's some great insight. And I'm just going to keep reading a couple questions here on Facebook just so we get to all of them. Tommy wants to know, what ZMan bait would you use for reds and trout when you're fishing the same spot?
And what jig as well would you
what
use
jig?
for?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the jigs. I'd like to get into that.
Yeah. Well, I'll take the first part of that. Depends on the water depth. The jigs that you're fishing depends on the water depth. And Dave and I did a lot of work and research and studying, trying to find what we considered the perfect bait for the Charleston area. And I think we got a video on that. And we found that the 3/16 ounce would be probably, and that's what I use 80-90% of the time now, is the 3/16. You can go to, if you're fishing deeper, go to a quarter, go to a little larger, up to a half, whatever you need. But 3/16 and match the hatch. And I say that if you got glass minnows, in the river and no menhaden, no mullet to speak of, what are you gonna fish? I'm gonna fish a little small bait like we did in Louisiana. Fish to what the hatch is. They're eating glass minnows. I'm gonna fish something that's 3 to 3.5 inch long. If they crushing mullet, I'm gonna fish 4.5, 5 inch baits that'll match that size. You don't have to match the exact color, but match what the size of the hatch, of what they're feeding on. And the water clarity determines the color. Light, dark, and Dave has taken that white, the flag shad, and we've caught fish in light, dark, bright, and everything. So white's always a go-to color. But I think it really depends on what the fish are feeding on, what the natural food is, to determine what size and how you're going to fish that.
Yeah, I would say, in my opinion, that redfish versus trout, a lot of times it's color. And it's one of the times when color seems to matter. Redfish seem to like crustacean, brownish colored lures. They seem to really, prefer that. Trout seem to like more baitfish color, whites and blues and silvers. And that seems to be the difference. I think if I'm trying to target redfish, I'm going to use like the perfect perch color from Z-Man or Houdini or something that's like a brown.
Well, like we said, they matches the hatch.
Yeah, it matches the hatch.
If you want to what they're eating, if you keep a fish, cut their bellies open. If they're feeding on crabs and crawfish or fiddlers, then use the browns and the blacks and the darks down on the bottom. Fish it slow. Right. That's what they're feeding on. If the trout are feeding on shrimp, you want to fish something that's sparkly silver like a shrimp or pink, and it's got a little glitter to it.
Yeah, if you read the DNR book for trout, the larger trout, their primary forage is baitfish. So you're going to want to fish, the grays, silvers, whites, the baitfish colors.
That's perfect. One thing that I wanted to talk about, and when I was thinking about and writing down some questions to ask y'all on this show, I remember when we were running back into Louisiana down the ditch, we were almost back to the boat ramp. Y'all are pointing at each other or pointing at the bank and saying that is what we designed the Texas eye for. It was all these trees laid down in the canal and whatnot. So I really wanted to dive in because that seemed like a jig that y'all are both really passionate about. Kind of how that design came about, where y'all like to fish the Texas eye. And I think you had a Texas eye, Ralph. If you want to show everybody when you're talking about it.
We got one here, and this is something that Dave and I are very proud of. It is a.
Down just a little and pull it back to you. Just
a little lower, right there.
There we go. Yeah.
All right, this is something we came up with. It came from the old bass fishing days. Everybody knows what a Texas rig is. You put a slip sinker on the hook, and you some people put a toothpick in and break it off so you don't. That's called a Texas rig. So Dave and I came up with the Texas eye. You can fish it weedless. We got the one barb on it, and Dave, you want to hold that back up there? Yeah. The bait it's a completely weedless jig, and we added our version of it with a wobble head. There's some other wobble head stuff out there, but this is what we came up with. It looks you fish it just like you do a regular Texas rig for bass. It's weedless. got one barb on it, but you get the added effect of that wobble head when you pull it, and you get the current moving it. And we called it a Texas eye because that's just what we came up with, because it's rigged just like a Texas rig for largemouth, and we've been very successful with the largemouth bass fishermen that have tried this, and we've won a couple of tournaments. We got a young man that's our sponsor in that, or helps us with it and promotes our product, and he's done very, very well with it. So we excited about the potential. But now we've caught flounder, redfish, trout, bluefish, most anything you can name on this, because it's all this fishing that we do is just like large. Throw in the structure. You can fish this in a treetop. You can fish it in a bush. You can fish it in grass. Finesse it through, and you'll come out there. It is weedless, but you don't have to worry about a guard on it or tripping a guard, this sort of thing. It's just like a Texas eye bass fishing rig that you set up. You can drag it through most anything as long as you finesse it.
Yeah, so you can be pretty rough on that. I mean, like you're saying, and throw that into a lot of coverage and pull. That's awesome, man. That's a sharp looking design there, Dave.
In my opinion, this is our best product, and there's no comparison. If you look at my tackle box right now, it's full of these 3/16 ounce Texas eyes, and just like for what Ralph said, it's mostly weedless. It's got great action. It doesn't miss even the slightest bite. I mean, what more could you want? And we're always just trying to find different ways to present this eye in different ways: weedless, non-weedless, different hook sizes, and this to me is like the ultimate. Why would you want anything but that?
Dave, show them how if it stands up when you hit the bottom.
So
the ZMan product.
ZMan Elastec is buoyant. If you didn't know that, it's let me detach it here. If you didn't know ZMan, its Elastec material is very, very stretchy.
Yeah, that's
right. It doesn't break, and that means toothy saltwater fish are not going to bite it in half. And that for that reason, as long as you don't break it off, you can catch 100 fish on it without any trouble. And it's it's just because, and it's also very supple. So if you notice, it's just
a lot of easy movement.
It's got a lot of action when it swims.
It's lifelike.
I think that's one of the most underrated things. People don't talk about Z-Man being supple. And it's like twice as flexible as anything else on the market. So it looks very, very lifelike when it's swimming. And that's why I like it so much.
Show them the part when the tail stands up and the current is a great part.
So it's the other thing about it is it's very, very buoyant. So if you were to dead stick this on the bottom, because of the pivot head, it's going to float straight up.
Oh, wow.
And just do this in the current.
Yeah, create a lot of action. Wow.
You've read up on bass fishing. There's a something called a Ned rig, which is really, really popular, and it's basically it's kind of like just a straight piece of material that's floating like this, and it looks like a worm or I don't think anyone knows what it looks like, but the fact is it catches tons of fish.
And so you think out of all the products that you have, you're saying that's your personal favorite? You got the full of your tackle box.
It's my personal favorite.
Okay. Yeah, so everybody that's listening, don't jump off the broadcast, but make sure you go to iStrikeFishing.com and load up on those things. That's the first time I've seen it, man. I don't know how I've not seen that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, interesting. So, of course, I have my go-to. I go to the store, I know what I'm getting, I grab it, and then, but seeing this, hopefully, of course, I'm not Judson. I'm not on the water every single day, so I'm sure a lot of people watching have seen it and know what it is and like it. So speaking of that eye, first of all, just amazing design, awesome design. But Marge here says, what color eye to use for different water depths versus natural light from the sky? So is there different color eyes at different depths that we should be looking for when we're using iStrike products?
So, a great question. Probably a lot of people don't know. I'm actually an optical engineer, so I study light. That's my day job. So I have a little bit different opinion than a lot of people. And if you hear about most fishermen say, when it's dark, fish a dark lure. When it's light, fish a light lure. And I sort of understand that, but to me, as an optical engineer, I'm all about contrast. I want fish to see what, I want them to see what the lure, I want them to see from a distance what's passing by them. So I want a light lure when there's dark conditions because of contrast, which is it's like 180 degrees opposite from what the general opinion is.
It is.
I'll fish a pearl white lure that's what we call a flat shad, because I've used it so much and had great success with it. But I use it all the time because it's got the best contrast in the water. And probably a lot of people say, nah, that's wrong, but that's what I just can't, as a scientist, as an optical scientist, that's what I wrap my head around. So what was the original question?
About the color for different depths.
Oh yeah, color for different depths. So also other interesting thing is I've read some research from actually I think it was North Carolina, where they said most inshore saltwater fish do not even see the color red. And I have the spectrums from what their retinas will see for flounder, trout, redfish. They don't even see red. So red. Every fisherman wants a red this or that on their lure because it looks like blood or whatever like that. Sorry, but fish aren't going to see color red. Just same as a deer does not see safety orange vests. They see like a gray. When you have a red lure, they're not going to see red. They're going to see like a gray color. So you look at my tackle box, I don't have red. I don't ever use red. Even our own red eyes, I don't use them. Not to say they don't work. We have a good friend who won $60,000 in the Redfish Cup using nothing but red trout eye jigs. So red works, but they're not seeing that red. They're seeing the eye.
Yeah. So
people come in all the time and they say, well, what color eye? And we always say, well, it's the eye that matters. The color secondary. And I always tell them when the water's murky, you want something with higher contrast. So we'll point them toward the glow, which is basically black and white, or the chartreuse, which is bright yellow versus white.
Or in the bright sun, we'll do the.
Yeah.
If you want to show them that color.
Yeah, and this example, I don't know if you can see it, but it's a chrome.
Okay. Yeah.
Basically, it's like a mirror. It's a mirror reflecting.
Bright days, you get reflection with that. And that's what we're
just highly reflectant.
That's the color I use a lot of times sight fishing in shallow water.
Yeah. So clear water, we're pointing them towards the gold and the pearl. When it's murky, we're going towards chartreuse and glow. And it's just so that the fish can see that, they can identify that eye. You're a fish, you're in the water, it's murky, you can't see much. You see something go across your field of view. How do you tell if that's something to eat or it's something to be afraid of? And the eye is what we think seals the deal, whether that's food or not. And if they can see that eye 6 inches further away than another color, then that's what we want people to use.
Most certainly. Well, I just realized we've been on for an hour and a half already. Time flies when you're doing this. But we wanted to give y'all a chance. If y'all have anything else, Dave and Ralph, that y'all wanted to touch on and talk about. I know y'all had sent over some things that we can jump into that real quick, and then we're going to kind of close the show down. Y'all shared a lot of great information.
Just a lot of great stuff, man.
One other question I wanted to ask real quick, though, is tell me about the new sheep's head jig real quick.
Oh, that is the jailbait,
the jailbait reef jig.
Sure. So the jailbait jig it's sort of like it came to me just as you hear about people sheephead fishing. I've done it myself. The complaints are always that it's hard to hook the fiddler on a hook. It's hard to feel the bite. The idea is that you have to set the hook before the fish bites. That gives people an idea how hard it is to feel the bite of a sheephead. So how do you improve that? So that's where the inspiration for the jailbait came from. And the jailbait is, I have an example here, if I can show it. It's basically a double hook attached to a piece of lead. Sorry if I'm not getting this right.
Oh yeah, we can see there.
That's
good.
perfect.
It's a double hook attached to a piece of lead. It's got a large eye on it. It's not really functional, but the key is this rubber band on it. And the idea is that you'll take a fiddler crab and you'll pinch him. I'm going to use my finger as an example of a fiddler crab. You pinch it against the back, and you use this rubber band and you pull it over the hooks, and you'll strap that fiddler crab to the back of the lead, and he's right above those double hooks. And the idea is that you're directly connected to that jig, to the weight, with your line. It's not like a Carolina rig where you have a weight and then a hook below it, so that when that fish bites it, you're not going to necessarily feel it. When he bites this one, you're going to feel it directly, and when he bites it, those double hooks are right underneath the bait, so that when you set the hook, it's going to go right up into the lip, so that.
And you're fishing live bait. That fiddler's down there. He's swimming. His legs are moving. His arms. You don't have to penetrate the fiddler with. You strap him in kind of like a backpack or a baby harness, and he's down on the bottom of that lead, and he's live bait. You're fishing live bait without killing it on this rig.
Yeah, if you don't get bit in 30 minutes, when you pull that crab back up, he's still moving.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, because you push through the shell with a hook, and they're going to die pretty quickly.
Yep.
Well, was there anything else that y'all wanted to touch on tonight on your end that you feel like we weren't able to cover?
Yeah. So the relationship we have with ZMan, probably that's a lot of people have a lot of that question. If you buy our products through ZMan, which we highly encourage you to do, we have a distribution agreement with ZMan. So if you go to your local tackle shop and buy a trout eye jig with a blue label that's a ZMan label, it's the same product as you'll buy from us, and we will get a small royalty from that sale, and we highly encourage people to do that. We're very proud to be partners with ZMan. I just want people to know we have an online store. That's our main form of business. People from all around the country will buy from us on a regular basis, and we have big discounts if you buy in bulk. We've reserved the right to be the only place in the world that you can buy our jigs in bulk quantities of 50, 100,
wow,
whatever you want. And if you buy more than 50, you'll save 40%, up to 40%, depending on the product line. By doing so, it saves on packaging costs and whatnot, and just direct to consumer, you cut out a lot of cost. So if you like our jigs, you want to buy a lot, just go to istrikefishing.com and order directly from us, and we'll hook you up. We always ship, like we keep everything in stock, so we'll send it out the same day or next day depending on when you order, and $50 or more gets free shipping. So, you'll have it in your doorstep in 2 to 3 days, depending on how far away you are from us.
Well, man, that's awesome, and that's super generous of you guys to share that with our viewers. I know when you told me that originally on our our pre-call, that I was like, man, that's a really generous offer, and for people to be able to go buy bulk, especially for guides. I feel like that's a huge. Someone just asked in the comments if you guys have a guide program. Which a 40% discount. I don't know if you need one, but that's pretty generous.
Yeah. And I answer that question probably 3 times a week at least. We'll say, you have a guide program, do you have a pro staff? And I say, well, do you know what? If you're on a pro staff for some company X, what do you get for it? And usually you'll get to say you're on the pro staff, but then you get 15% off their product. Well. Yeah. You can go any given day and get 40% off our product. And for that reason, in hindsight, I don't know if that was the best approach, but that's where we're at.
Yeah,
but, we can't really afford to also have a pro staff because we wouldn't make any profit. So,
yeah. Hey, from one business owner to another, man, we totally everybody on this podcast right now or the show, we understand that if there's no profit margin, there's no business. And so, yeah, man, I appreciate you sharing that. And if you guys have any other thoughts, we'd love to hear it. For everybody viewing, don't hop off yet. We're going to give away that iStrike package, man, and I'll bring that up real quick just so you know, because if you haven't commented, you got to at least say hello to us to be entered to win to this iStrike package we're going to give away here in just a couple of minutes. So guys, if there's anything else that you want to share or anything like that, or we can go ahead and get that package away.
I'd like to share one thing with you. I get asked this question a lot, and Dave's heard this story, and I think we published it one time. But if you're out in the river and learning new areas, it's real important to keep your bearing, know where you're at. If you ever get too far out and you get lost in a creek or you get lost in a river or something, you follow the crab traps. If you look at the crab traps, you see them floating, and you follow them, you see which way the tides are going. Stay one crab trap after the other. That'll lead you back out to the main river and out the way you'll be safe and can help you if you get lost. Same thing in this part of the country, probably down where you guys are in Wilmington and Florida down here. You get lost out in the woods, find you a possum, and you get right behind that possum and you follow it. You walk real slow and you walk right behind him, because within 24 hours, he's going to find a highway to get run over in, and you know where you're at. It took years for me to learn that, but I want to share that with y'all. You follow the crab traps, then you follow possum. You can't get lost.
I love it. We just had a guy say that he ordered 7 packs of gel baits, so I'm excited for him to get those and test them out and see how great they are for catching sheepshead. So you want to take it away here, Billy?
Yeah, I'll get us closed down. First of all, let me just bring up a multi-cam here again. Really appreciate you guys coming on from iStrike. Once again, well, first of all, appreciate you believing in us here at Eastern Current and supporting our first show, coming on our third show, trusting us with your reputation, trusting us to half know what kind of questions and how to lead a podcast and ask you. So I appreciate that, man. Appreciate all the hard work. You guys are doing great stuff for the community. Judson, obviously you guys that was the connection here to Eastern Current. So just thank you so much for coming on, and we'd love to have you again. I know some people were asking some sheepshead questions, and I didn't even ask them because I'm like, that's probably a whole nother episode that we can really jump into. But thank you guys once again for being a part of the show. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
We appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and dive right in here and just give away this. And I've already picked a random winner. So the random winner of this package, I'm going to bring it up again just so everybody can see. And there's that gel bait package right there. It's going to be Sam Matthews. So Sam, if you're still on, just shoot us your information. We'll have Dave send out that package right to you. Is that how you're going to do it, Dave? You're going to send that right out. Is that right? Perfect. That sounds good. So, yeah, absolutely. Well, and Judd, unless you have anything else, man, I think it's been just an excellent show. And
it's been an incredible show. I saw one more comment I just wanted to target real quick, and it was, can we stop by their shop and buy their products? You definitely can. It's iStrikeFishing.com. And you can pick up all their products from there, like they were saying, in bulk, up to 40% off.
Now, if somebody's in your area, do you guys have like a little shop or pro shop or something they can come and talk and hang out and grab some stuff from you?
Absolutely. We're at 7341 Peppermill Parkway. If they'll text us or let us know where they're at, we'll give them directions. We'll have a map up on our site, directions from on Interstate 26, and glad to have you come by. It's nothing fancy, but you come in there, we guarantee you'll leave, you'll catch fish.
Yeah, come in. You can Google us as well. We're open 8:30 to 12 daily, and come in, get your personal fishing seminar.
Okay.
I love it.
That sounds good. Well, hey guys, if you're watching the broadcast, I'm just going to jump over to my main camera here. First of all, thank you guys so much for joining us on the third episode, man. Judson, just amazing, amazing episode. Such a good episode. I learned so much from these guys. So next week we have Ryan White from Hatteras Jack up in the Outer Banks. We're going to be talking about surf fishing, so make sure you mark it on your calendar to join us for that surf fishing event as well. And as far as iStrike, guys, go to their .com, or right here I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to pull up their feed again so you can see their face. So yeah, Dave Flatt here, Ralph Phillips, iStrike Fishing. So at iStrike Fishing, they're on Instagram, they're on YouTube, they got their website, Facebook. There's a ton of ways to get in touch with them. So go support those guys. If you've gotten value from this show tonight, Judson's always telling me, like, hey, you're like the salesman of the show, so you push everything. So I love sales. So, man, go to their website and buy that bulk, get that 40% discount, and support these guys. And once again, Judson, thanks again, man, for having me here at the studio / your house. Awesome show. Looking forward to next week with Ryan White and doing some surf fishing.
For sure, man. It's been super fun. We are loving this. We're learning how to work together and bring this show together. And we're just really excited about where it's going to go. And if y'all have any show ideas or things y'all want to see on the show, please shoot us a DM on Instagram, on Facebook. We're doing this because we want it to be interactive with our viewers. And so we're looking forward to next week and hope y'all can tune in. We really loved having the iStrike Fishing guys here. But, yeah, this is me and Billy tuning out this week.
That's it.
And we will see y'all soon. Thank you guys for coming and sharing your knowledge, Dave and Ralph.
Episode 3 is over, guys. See ya.
All right.
Have a great night. Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah.